Let's go. Let's have an NVK. Talk shit about everyone and everything. How you doing, brother?
Hey, dude, good.
How's the world?
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
A few minutes.
Yeah.
It's not been long. I had to come on this one because last time you guys just blamed everything on me.
Yeah.
This is why
it's
you're
still
here.
Gonna be your fault.
It's like 3 a.m. when Danny is. His eyes look shot.
My eyes are constantly shot at the moment.
I wondered why you were joining us.
Yeah, not having you blame me all the time.
Sun is speaking out, man.
When the AI kills us all, it's going to be Danny's fault.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna make an offering of Danny. Here, take Danny. Leave us alone.
I don't think it'll be good
Leave
enough.
us alone. Man, we've been making a few AI shows recently. It's almost like we should become what Bitcoin and AI did.
I mean, there is no like. I think we reached the inflection point now where it's like you can't like. It's just part of everyday life. It's just part of everything. So like you can't. It's like Bitcoin, right? Like like you always, especially if you're Bitcoin, but like it's like Bitcoin is part of your finances. Like it's just you can't ignore it, right? Like AI is part of like everything you do, even if you don't know it's there, right? And it's just the beginning. It's still crappy.
I mean, it's pretty fucking good right now.
It feels that way.
Yeah, the amount of stuff I use it for is insane. I mean, I've been talking about the shows daily, every day. Use it, graphics. I don't write much anymore.
Oh, it shows. Just kidding.
This actually isn't me. This is AI Pete.
That's right.
Ask me about an Xpub.
That's right. You're gonna have all the answers.
I have all the answers.
That's great. I mean, like, is it any different than like having your phone with you and being able to ask, like, Wikipedia, like a few years ago, what like things were, or just you couldn't make bets anymore for a decade now, where like you just disagree on something, and then somebody had to go look back at the at the Encarta encyclopedia, right? Oh, you guys are British, so the Encyclopedia Britannica. Like something like you move the information from like the centralized sort of like library into everybody's hands.
But it's more than that. It's more than
yes.
that, because when we got the internet, it was like, oh, I can search stuff and find some answers. I don't need to search. I don't need to get the Index Encyclopedia Britannica and find which volume it was in, and then go to that volume and then try and figure out a way of writing it in my own words.
Yeah, there was a search revolution, right? I mean,
Yeah.
It really was. Like, it's not even just the internet. It's like you can query. Like, you don't have to go look at yourself.
The AI thing's different in that it's not just finding information. It's doing jobs for you that humans would do before, and the speed at which it's changing, and then the kind of thought experiment about where this is going, short, medium, long term. And it's a fascinating chat. I mean, I was chatting to Danny this morning, and I was talking about, how, have you played around with the Chat GPT actual chat where you talk to it?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, we started Unleashed, because, the ChatGPT thing was driving me insane.
But Pete means the actual, like, the voice prompt, not the text prompt.
Oh, it's like, it kind of doesn't work, because, like, it annoys the fuck out of me, because it doesn't have, like, it's not to do with the ChatGPT itself. It has to do with, like, the system they're using to, like, hear you. So it never knows when you stop talking.
I don't know, man. I tell you what.
I overtalk over the thing all the time.
Well, I didn't have that much of a problem with it, but I tell you where it became really interesting is when I'm driving, right? Traditionally, make phone calls, listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I found at first using it, I was like, this is weird. I don't want to talk to this thing that I'm falling in love with. It's just too weird. But then I was driving, and me and Connor, and Connor what was he asking me? He was asking me, why do we sleep? He's like, why do we sleep? It's so weird. Why do we sleep? I was like, I don't know. Let's ask chat. So we asked the chat, and then we're just driving along talking to it. And now I realize I can just have a conversation with the chatbot whilst driving, like teach me about Austrian economics. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are the arguments for? What are the arguments against? And you can just have this conversation. What's an Xpub? It's an extended public key. I know. I'll talk to you about derivation paths soon, mate.
That's true.
No, I won't. But what I'm saying is, it's like you can get into this. rather than just search, you can actually have a conversation and say, teach me a bit about this. And I don't know, I find it fascinating.
It is pretty cool. I mean, I was in Japan walking in a small town, and I bump into like a lady that like was selling some stuff, and it was one of those towns that's like if you don't speak Japanese, it's like please get out of here kind of thing. So I just I was using the ChatGPT like voice thing, and I just go like, can you please tell this lady in Japanese, like give me two of this thing, and like it did. Like and then the lady responded to me, and he responded to me in English. Like, so the translation stuff is remarkable. It's quite there already.
Well, the natural language sounding as well, like historically where you have
Yes.
voice apps that like read text, they get so much wrong. It sounds so weird, but this just sounds like a real human.
It's convergence, right? So you have the convergence of the voice generation systems, which have nothing to do with the text generation stuff, right? Which have nothing to do with image generation stuff. These are all extremely separated things. But once you converge them and you use this essentially like multimodal thing, like it starts to become, because that's what humans are, right? I mean, like we're kind of like multimodal thing that just happen to have everything integrated into like a a massive nervous system, right? But like we can smell, that's just one system, right? Like everything is well integrated because we have 50 million years of evolution for animals, but it really is just like humans breaking down this massive problem of having computers like think and pretend to do things the way we do. And it's just pretending, right? Because that's not how the computer thinks. It's not thinking like us, sensing like us, or doing anything like us. We're far from that. And I don't even know if we're going to ever go that direction, right? Maybe we go like the supercomputer sort of thinking method may not ever go the way that like biological beings are. Different, maybe takes different paths, like aliens, like if there's another carbon, like non-carbon based life form out there that thinks differently too.
Well, I find it fascinating. It's the whole thing amazes me. But again, thinking about the future, but I'm pretty sure, being the NVK you are, and the fact I'm talking about ChatGPT, there's like part of you inside that's dying. It's like, fuck you, Pete. Come on, man, what are you doing?
No, yeah, I mean, you gotta give props to them, but so corporate AI is fully captured, right? Like it's not by choice. I mean,
whoa,
like,
hold on, you say that a second. I did this thing yesterday. I was amazed. I didn't get banned from ChatGPT, and it answered how it did. Let me see if it'll do it again. Hold on. Let's see if you can hear this as well. Let me turn it up. Hiya. Can you tell me about the allegations against Sam Altman from his sister?
so slow.
Can you hear the ticking?
Annie Altman has made serious allegations against her brother, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. She has accused him of various forms of abuse, including sexual, physical, emotional, verbal, and financial abuse. These allegations came to public attention primarily through a series of tweets and other social media posts.
All right, I'll stop that now. I was surprised it told me that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like like he's not gonna censor that thing to that. Like the problem is like this guy, especially Silicon Valley guys, they don't give a shit about like what people think of them, like like what newspaper writes of them, or their sister that they raped in the past shows up on Twitter talking about it. Like they don't care. I think that the main problem is there's like government mandated information types, right? Like they can't escape. And in all like honesty too, like none of the open source models can escape much of it either, right? Like if you go on Unleashed and you type like something about COVID, it's going to give you the government answer. Like we're not retraining, like we have it more uncensored so that you will at least be upfront about that. That's what I'm supposed to say, kind of thing. Like that's like it's a different, like we're not trying to pretend that the uncensored is fully uncensored.
Hold on, let's go back a step so people listening understand. Like most people listening will know about ChatGPT, and they'll probably know about Midjourney. Just explain what Unleashed is and what it is you're doing and why you've created this.
So I mean, like this was a few years, like a couple years ago now, I think, or a year ago. I was just sitting with some friends, and ChatGPT was still on like I think 3.5, and it was kind of shit, right? And then a friend of mine, we were actually here in a small group of people. He's like, "Listen, no, you have to go and you have to add all this information to your custom prompt." So it's better, right? So I added like, please be truthful, please check information twice, please, like I cannot be easily offended. I added a bunch of sort of modifiers to my prompt, and then like, holy fuck, this is actually usable now. you know and then like it was very close to them like making some updates to their system, and then like code like code review and code like prompts were good, and then like sort of like snowballed into like, okay, I mean, like I can start using this thing. And then I looked at the terms of service, and I'm like, holy fuck, everything I talk or update or upload into this thing, like they essentially own it or close to, right? And I'm like, I cannot do anything truly functional, right? Like business wise with somebody owning my data, period. Like I'm not gonna I don't even use Google phones. I use Apple because of that, right? So I was like, okay, great. So like, let's just look into what's out there in terms of open source models. Let's just stand one up, because I don't want to run it on my computer. I don't want a hot computer with a subpar like model in it. I want like, I want the full hose of high quality supercomputer shit. But like without the bullshit, right? Like I want to own my data. I want it to be able to be free and like, with really good privacy, right? So that's what we did with Unleashed.chat. Like we're like, okay, great. So we put like a few open source models there that we like. Unfortunately, the uncensored ones are kind of like they've been lobotomized, so they're not as good as the like the censored ones. So we have kind of like both options. We really like Mixtral. It's very fast. It's a model from I think it's like a French company that it was open source from the beginning. There is Llama 3 there now or coming soon. And it doesn't matter. The point is we're always going to be having like the latest and greatest that we can find open source there. But the key is you own your data and we can't see your prompts, which is really cool, right? And it gets better because the way we did it, the validation, the way we did it is people couldn't even do like troubleshooting with us because they would ask a question, the thing would maybe answer wrong, and they're like, "Oh, it's broken." I'm like, "We can't see." So we created an anonymous way for you to report bugs, right? So when you report the bug, we don't know which account came from or whatever. When we declare, "Hey, listen, you're going to share your prompt with us," right? But it's all sort of like that model and that mode. And we're like, okay, great. Like this is real. This is really high quality hardware behind this. So it can't be free, right? So what we did is instead of like a bullshit like fee per month or per year or scam token or whatever the scammers are doing these days, it's just like lightning, right? So we charge people per generation, like actual generation tokens that happen in the machines, and then we just expose that as an invoice. So you add credits, and then it uses up. Why is that important? Is because like we don't have to have PII, right? So there's no personal information on the system.
So one of the big problems with like OpenAI is the sort of inherent bias in the system, but presumably you can't actually remove that from your system. It's just a different bias.
Yeah, it's a different bias. Like, I mean, like, I on the beginning of my AI journey, I sort of like was like, I hate that he answers COVID answers wrong, and I've vermectin this and whatever, right? And then I was like, what, fuck all that shit. That I don't use any of that stuff for work. Like, I don't care what a computer thinks about the government answer for COVID for work, right? What I need to upload data that is related to my business, like GitHub repos, and I wanted to pull them into the system so I can do code stuff. I want to upload like, sales data. I want to upload all this stuff that's actually useful as a business, right? Like all my library of docs, right? Like all the documentation for all my devices and my marketing sites, everything in there, and sort of like and then do things, right? Like fix the text here, do that, do this, do that, analyze whatever, like which cold card I should sell at which phase of the moon, and like so we sort of really started to focus on like what is like actually useful as a business instead of like wasting our time trying to fix the COVID problem. And we do try uncensored models here and there, and we do try to fine tune them with hard prompts and things, and sort of like different agents, but it's not quite there, and maybe it'll never be, because the actual hard original training was done with all the bullshit deep inside.
So I'm having to play with it at the moment. So you've got two model options. You pay a different price per prompt.
Yeah, so it's the size. So it's very sort of like honest pricing. It's whatever like costs on the GPU that we're using. So whatever that computer is doing. So some models are more token, bigger, so they cost more to use, and that's what we try to do. So like we try to just expose that to the user, and
But is this like your version of ChatGPT 3.5 to 4 kind of thing?
I like to say it's more like a vessel for good models with like proper business logic that like works with privacy. Like I'm not interested in the politicization of the issue. Like it's like I just want to be practical. Like I need this for business, do the thing, and if I can find more models that are better for different things, we're going to expose them there, and then people use it for business, and like that there's a few thousand people using it for business paying. Like it's useful, especially for code. If you're doing code analysis and things, like Mixtral is especially good at that.
Okay, so I'm just playing around with it. It seems pretty good. It seems pretty accurate. What do you think, Danny?
It doesn't. So Peter's just sent me a screenshot. He asked it if Peter knows what an XPub is, and it says yes. So it's definitely not accurate.
Yes, Peter Paul likely knows what an XPub.
What we tried to do just before our recording, over the weekend, we tried to add a podcast querying. So like essentially like every single transcript of every podcast that is on some of this data banks of podcast transcripts. And then we were going to like make fun of Peter by asking a lot of things that he said before in podcasts. It was working, but the problem was messing the main system. The main system didn't know how to answer questions anymore, aside of podcast answers. So like every time you would ask something else useful, you'd answer with like, yeah, Peter didn't say this about XPubs or whatever.
Okay, so looking at it, so what you're basically saying is the inherent bias and government misinformation, all that kind of stuff is a bit of a red herring to what you actually want AI for, which is a useful business tool, which I totally empathize with, because like I said, I'm using it every day, and I use it mainly for work, like generate this, build me that, analyze this. And there's been some really cool things I've done recently. For example, it's a really, really neat example. I had we sell merchandise, right, at the football club, and the manufacturer, I say I need the size guides, and they would send me like screenshots they've made and sent them across, which I can't put on the website. But then I would just load into the AI and say, interpret this, and it'll build me a proper table that I can copy paste into a proper table and use. There's lots of things like that I've started to kind of venture into, and analyzing data, things like that. And I found it particularly useful. I think what you're saying is, forget the red herring. There are very useful business tools in there. Let's just build one, but not tell a company like OpenAI, and by virtue of that, probably the government, what I'm working on and what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's the main thing is like I think it's a worthy battle, right, for people out there, especially the Galaxy brains building actual AI models to sort of like try to train them honestly and like do not have like like Leviathan 1984 sort of like model like answers, right? I think that's important, right? Like, but like I can't do that, right? Like I am not like I'm not raising $100 billion and sort of like putting together a company that does that. And if you do raise $100 billion and make a company that does that, you're going to get owned by the government too. It's like phones. All the phones are owned. Like, the phones are backdoored, period. Like, if you're a company that can do things of that size, that the government has a big stake in it, they will come and try to do it. So you have to go through the sort of like the open source path, where you try to gather everybody and try to do it in public, and sort of like you're not capturable. Let's put it this way, right? But for AI, it's still a little early and a little hard to do that. And the open source models are always a little behind, but they'll catch up. Things are going to get better. I'm unconcerned about that battle. That battle is going to be won in time. So yes, so the point is like, let's make then what's useful for business today, because that's what I can contribute with.
So where do you think we are? Like, having played, you've probably gone deeper down the AI rabbit hole than either of us two. Kind of where are we at in terms of how good are these things? Like, are you impressed?
It depends on what, right? Like the mental framework I use now is that we're essentially like, I want to say, a 19-year-old mathematical genius who's drunk. That's the pinnacle of AI right now, right? Like, it's still very confused about the world. It still needs a lot of guidance. You still need to put like a lot of hard prompts and like multi-agent. Like there's this other thing called clamping, and it does exactly as it sounds. It makes it like completely obsessed with a single topic. That's how they are starting to make, for example, help chats not help you with something unrelated to the help chat. So it's still very early, right? Like, you're still dealing with a 19-year-old that's a genius. But it's accelerating, man. It really is accelerating. Like, we're essentially now on this path where the main line of development is moving fast, but we're always just like one breakthrough away from like little exponential breaks, right? So that's why, like, oh, you couldn't do this before. Oh, now you can. But we don't know yet when those little problems get solved in this timeline.
Are they using AI to solve those problems?
Like, so there is this thing called multi-model, multi-agent. This sort of a lot of like, the reason why ChatGPT feels like magic, right, is because you have $100 billion and 5,000 people. And what do 5,000 people do every day? Because like, I'm able to like host a model, right, that's very similar in capabilities as ChatGPT, right? But why does it feel a little jankier than theirs, right? Or why doesn't? Because what they do is they probably have like 1,000 or 2,000 of those people writing hard prompts. So like, they spend all day writing. If a person asks this should be the answer. Okay, and they have like millions of those. Okay, millions.
Why does it need hard prompts?
Well, because like, there is a lot of like, hallucination, right? Which is when the AI says something that it shouldn't, or just creates. Like, a lot of times it happens, especially before with the previous models, where, you'd ask something about like, why does the sun rises in, like on the east? Right. Well, because the Earth is square, and like the, or the Earth is flat, or whatever. You come up with a beautiful, perfect explanation of why it does that. Right. Completely wrong.
Are these hard prompts or base facts?
Yes. Well, I mean, it depends on who defines the facts, right? So, for example, for COVID or ivermectin or whatever, they will have a hard prompt, defined by the government. It's like, if somebody asks this, please answer this, period, or we pull your license or whatever, right? So like, it can be for the good or for the bad, right? Or to fix bugs or whatever. So like, there is a lot of that, and that's how you. It's almost like a assisted training, right? Like, that's part of the training process as well. When you're training an AI, there is unassisted training, right, where the AI is just chewing through stuff, and then there is like, when there is a human doing Q&A with the AI, and then sort of like tweaking the AI so that it gives better answers. But anyways,
is that almost like humans? Like, it's a hard fact that I know you're NVK, and it's a hard fact I know Danny is Danny, and it's a hard fact that I know 1 times 1 is 1 and 2 times 2 is 4. There's no need. There's certain things you don't need the AI model to go and like reinvent and rethink.
But this is the problem, right? Like AIs are not thinking the way.
Well, like
they really are.
Have the freedom within the code that exists for it to go rogue.
No,
it doesn't need.
It doesn't. No, think about it this way: the AI is just a bullshit machine. Okay, all he does all day is come up with. It's just that the bullshitting became so good that is statistically almost always right.
Right. So how does it work then? How does an AI learn and get better? So, for example, I don't know. Say I needed a contract. I need to write a contract with NVK for me to license Unleashed. Say I had to write that contract and certain usage rights and certain costs. How does it know how to write that contract?
So this is the beauty of like this is for LLMs. Okay. So for LLMs, large language models, right? What you do is you feed it a lot of information, all the human knowledge, and you say, read all this. Okay. And like try to create some parallel points between things. Okay. That's what the tokens are, right? Like so AIs don't even know what English is, right? What they have is essentially a vector map, right? A vector map is just like points of numbers between numbers. It's just like you're just saying this point corresponds to this point, to that point, to that point. And then, so essentially when you upload data, it vectorizes the data and the model just has all these points in a GPU, right? Like kind of like how a 3D game works, right? Like you have all this points of where the games are, like where the pixels are in a map, right? And then it shows to you what looks like a 3D game, right? But it's just really little points in a map. It doesn't know what those things are. So AIs work exactly the same way. That's why you use GPUs for it. And essentially, like what you do is once he understands the correlation between, you know what, the letter is like A. Oh, look, more often than not, B comes after A. And then C, more often than not, comes after B and then A. Right? So it starts to create these correlations between things, but it doesn't know what those things are. It's just attributing a little number to things.
But how does it know those correlations are correct?
Well, it doesn't. It just, statistically speaking, it sees that in its system, right? Like more often than not, something is. Right? Because it sees it appearing. So like, oh, look, the guy that speaks English ABC is like this. So let's say dog. Okay, so dog is like this number that looks like this in this language, and then in the other language, oh look, they also have a thing that seems like a dog when you're talking about this context, right? And then it just keeps on doing this, like with every language, every text, every Moby Dick book, whatever it is. Right. And then like the model is just so big, but just so big. All the human knowledge is there, right? That it can statistically know the order of the letters if you want to say the alphabet in English. But it doesn't know any of this stuff. It does not think the same way. It does not like, it's very hard for us humans to sort of like think the way that they think. Like, unless you're a mathematician and you understand like vector graphs well, right? Like, and you can visualize a vector graph, like it just doesn't think like us, like at all. And that's why the hallucinations are always weird. That's why we have to cope with it in different ways, right? Like we have to create the hard prompts. We have to do all these things because it's very hard for us to go and tweak the little vector map.
Okay, so for example, I just asked Unleashed, write a contract between Peter and NVK, whereby NVK will dress as a clown and bounce on one leg 100 times every time Peter releases a new podcast episode, right? It's pretty
signed.
Pretty good contract together.
Yeah, because he read so many contracts.
So it's essentially a popularity contest based on the prompt of what's happened in history.
Yes. That's fucking dangerous, right?
Well, I said between NVK and Peter, and it's put your real name in there.
Yeah, he knows. Because see, so this is where it gets cool. and useful, right? It's like, okay, what else can we? So I want the model to search the internet, right? So because when you train a model, when like you're essentially fixed with the data up to the point you trained the model, right? And then like things that are not necessarily like trivial knowledge, right? It can infer. So like you go and say like, math, you just infer like more math, right? Now, like, what happened yesterday, it's unknown to the machine that was trained then. So like you needed to search the internet, and that starts to get good, right? So then you have to write code that the AI can execute to search the internet. So we did this for Nostr, right? Because I wanted to grok Twitter with Unleashed, but you're not allowed to. So like, okay, you know what? Let's do it Nostr. Nostr, all the information is public, right? It's all available. So you can search Nostr for stuff, right? And it can query Nostr, and like it becomes super powerful. And you start adding these little sort of modules and these little extra functionalities, and you get useful things.
I got to read you this, by the way, because it killed me. So, clause 2, duties of NVK. It's weird that it slipped this one. Let's check this one down out. It says, in exchange for the promotion and support provided by Peter to the Unleashed.chat platform. I never asked for that. It's just a contract whereby you would jump up and down if I release new podcast episodes. For some reason, it wants to slip in that I'm going to promote Unleashed for you.
No, but it makes sense, right? Like you're in a contract, you're exchanging something.
Yeah, but I wonder how many other contracts there are out there that I've got Unleashed promotion.
That's
Anyway,
funny.
listen to this. So NVK agrees to fulfill the following duties whenever Peter releases a new podcast episode.
Boy.
Dress as a clown. NVK will wear a complete clown outfit, including a wig, makeup, and colorful clothing for the duration of the performance mentioned below. 2, bounce on one leg 100 times. I think it feels sorry for you here, by the way. NVK will perform 100 jumping jacks, jumping in place and alternating between legs while maintaining balance on only one leg.
I'm going to become very strong.
Yeah, I'm going to release a lot of episodes. You got 48 hours notice, and you got 72 hours to perform.
That's
I think we should sign this contract.
And you've got 830 episodes to catch up on.
The contract stuff is really funny. Like so my wife is a lawyer, right? And so I'm like, okay, these things are apparently getting better for the law, right? So she goes there in 5 minutes, right? Like in ChatGPT and on Unleashed, and she starts sort of like asking, like, testing the AI. She's like, nope, it's all garbage.
Yeah,
it's all made up bullshit.
I don't think I would use it for contracts, but I have noticed it's pretty good if you need to amend a clause or have a specific clause.
Especially a clown clause, right?
Clown clause.
No, but what I have done that was useful is we have a little upload PDF functionality there, and I uploaded contracts before and had it sort of like, please try to find any language that may sound like I am, I don't know, doing this or doing that, right? It is very helpful in sort of summarizing things and sort of like finding things. That, like, sometimes you've seen contracts, you're a businessman, sometimes like it's like you just fuck it, right? I mean, like there's or like, especially a financial contract is like literally like you have the lawyers read it and give you their opinion, right? And then like you start reading the contract, you go like, Jesus Christ, I mean, like this thing is like 100 pages long, like there's no point.
Just fucking sign and send it over.
Exactly, right? Send the last page where I sign, right?
Yeah.
So what's cool about this though is like you can upload and you can actually find some interesting nuggets there, right? That start the way I like to think about it is like it helps like experts or invested sort of stakeholders sort of like get a better sense of things. So it's more like a little helper in a way, but you have to be an expert in order to do. It's like, for example, if you're asking to write code, you need to be a dev to know that the code is real or it's not gonna like destroy your whole server, right?
Well, yeah. So I can imagine this is actually useful for lawyers themselves.
It is.
Get contracts drafted because they know what's right and what's wrong.
There is a lot of AI-like companies. I mean, it's a lot of bullshit AI companies out there, but a lot of the law got changed a lot when I think it was Westlaw and a few of these companies started doing proper search over large bodies of legal documents, right? Like it was kind of a huge deal for lawyers because they used to be interns charging per hour to do that. And it was always very sort of like narrow search. And then it becomes bigger. And these companies are investing heavily in having sort of like AI read through those bodies that they own, right? To then sort of offer better inference over them. I do think e-law is going to end up happening. Like, you know, we're not too distant if we continue on this line of ascendance, where, you know, for especially for like, you know, small claims court or something like that, you know, there's an e-judge. You offer your fact, the other side offers their fact. The thing searches the internet, finds your Facebook, reads everything, knows your dick, you know, like, and figures out, like, you know, what's the best answer here. Maybe on the beginning, it's just an assistive thing, right? So you have a judge that then gets an opinion from 3 different models, right? Like, and these 3 different agents have 3 different opinions, right? You have the wise one, you have the risky one, and you have the I don't know, contrarian one, and they all give their own opinions from different brands, maybe, who knows? And then you make your own mind, right? Like a king's council. That's where I want to get to. It's like I want a king's council kind of like thing.
Well, there's an argument for using it, therefore, for governments and politics. Like, would you prefer AI models to make decisions? Like, for example, here is the government's budget. It's running over budget. It's going to be running a deficit. Where would be sensible places that you could remove from the budget so you don't have to increase taxation or print money and not reduce services to the point of revolution?
It's always going to be the thing that the politicians don't want, right?
Yeah,
so like what we need is no government or less government.
Well, less government. Yeah, but let's try it. Oh God, let's try your one.
While Pete's searching that, NVK, I got a question for you on so at the moment, if it's like inferring that B comes after A in this like vector map, but it doesn't really know why, it just knows statistically that's what happens. Once it can actually understand why, is that when we have AGI?
But what is why?
Well, once it knows, well, I see your point, but once it can like, it's not just statistically guessing that B is next, it knows B is next.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. What is why? In this model, in this style of thinking, maybe the why is irrelevant, right? Like, so for example, like nature, like it's pretty much without whys, right? Like it just is, right? I mean, we create whys for nature, right? But like what nature is doing is just following the path of like, you know, randomness plus efficiency, right? So like the tree evolved to be in a certain shape for the area because, you know, that's the nutrients on the soil, that's the weather, that's the wind, that's the, you know, everything. Like things just sort of like naturally, right? Like they just kind of go in a certain direction with some certain random events that like maybe throw some wrenches and, you know, extinct species here or there, right? But the thing is, it's like the why is irrelevant, right? Because like, the why is only cool for humans because we think we have agency on how to change things, right? But like, and we do change some things, but the point is that like in a long enough timeline, right? The why is it's just a nice thing to have.
So then if it's not the why that makes it like actual intelligence, like general intelligence, what is it that makes it general intelligence?
Well, there is the Turing test. There is a bunch of tests that like essentially like just to like be more layman is more like, you know, it sounds like what a human would sound like without faking it, without acting, right? It's just, you know, it forgets it's a computer. It just sort of like answer things as if it was a person, thinking person. But personally, I don't find that as useful as a practical person. I'm more interested into like, can things be better than a human and doing something so that we can improve humanity, right? Like that's essentially like where I'm at with this. It's like, can it you know, like generate a better design for a water pump, you know, that we couldn't think of, right? So for example, before 3D printing of actual metal parts, right, there were a bunch of very interesting shapes that were just either too expensive or important to manufacture, right? So you couldn't make rockets in a certain way. But now that you can do this other thing, you can change the shapes completely and find more efficiency, right? So like, what else can we make this thing create so that we can keep on moving humanity forward, right? And try to like have escape velocity from this like political bullshit.
Was it Chester, Pete, that was saying that we had him on the show? I can't remember where it was, maybe in LA, and he was saying that AI was already coming up with a way of like doing 3D models in a far more efficient way than humans even understood how.
Don't know. I've not seen that. I can't remember.
But that's the path. I mean, we're gonna get there. Like it's gonna be better than see the person that survives this, economically speaking, right? It's the person that is at the top of the creative chain here. It's like think in terms of like if it was an ad agency, it would be the art director. It's essentially like it's like so AI models have this bandwidth thing, right? It's called the context window, right? So it's like the size of the width that you can do. So the more money you have for bigger computers and also the type of model you use, like the bandwidth is bigger, right? Like, so you can have more things in parallel as you think through them. So the more in the scale of specialization you go up, right? Like you have people who are just thinking about too many different problems at the same time. And it's very hard for computers to replace.
But this is a good one. Okay, doctors, scientists, and researchers have built an artificial intelligence model that can accurately identify cancer in a development that they say could speed up diagnosis of the disease and fast track patients to treatment. So there's lots of like analysis work it's doing now, which is better.
So a lot of the stuff is based on YOLO. I don't know this specific one. YOLO is essentially an image recognition for patterns thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when you look at those images of like, Chinese drones shooting something or some people somewhere, and it like puts a little square, it's like Terminator style, right? What it's doing there, it got trained on a lot of video footage and a lot of images of like, this is what people look like. This is what like people we don't like look like, and it's very good at that. So it's just pattern matching, right? So for example, there's a lot of work being done where you do your CT scan, right? Like, or something that has body images, like go find cancer. Like this is what cancer looks like after looking at all this body of knowledge of what cancer looks like. And you can do that for like blood tests where like, the marker is maybe just like an amount of certain protein or something, whatever. Like the point is it's all pattern recognition models.
Yeah. I did ask you about making government smaller. What are the quick wins? Privatization, sell off state-owned enterprises, outsourcing, hiring private contractors, deregulation, tax cuts, streamline bureaucracy, consolidation, technology. And then so I went a step further, said, would AI be better for decision-making than people in government? Will it reduce corruption? It says AI can bring significant benefits in terms of efficiency, data analysis, and pattern recognition when compared to human decision-making processes. However, it is essential to recognize that AI has its limitations and may not be better or more effective than people in all situations, especially in the context of government decision-making. While AI systems can help reduce corruption by identifying patterns of fraudulent behavior, they cannot eliminate corruption entirely. So, I mean, what this is telling me is like exactly what you've been saying. Everything is pattern recognition. But it would,
it's statistical model.
But if you could take personal bias, greed, conflicts of interest out of political decision making, that would be it.
Yeah, but see, who defines, right, the prompts, right? So like this is the problem, and this is like the dark path that it's more likely to happen with government side, which is like government is going to say that like if you don't adhere to the third or fourth pronoun, you are now like, costing the government too much money for existing. So therefore terminate. Send drones, terminate. He doesn't have a third pronoun. It's like, it's the same with computers really. Like, like when IBM was like categorizing Jews in Germany, right? Like it's like who defines the program or who defines the parameters of like what is right and what is wrong, like ends up having all the power with this new powerful tool. So like government is going to misuse this to the nth degree. Look what they're doing with COVID, right? Like they're giving the wrong COVID answers and the wrong ivermectin answers by forcing that and saying that is the truth.
Okay, these large language models, they're just pattern recognition. What are the breakthroughs that is holding back AI at the moment that the key ones you're aware of?
I mean, so for example, like a time series data still sucks. Right. So time series data is, think of spreadsheets over time, right?
Mhm.
And that's super useful to business. That's when you really find what happened that month on, some marketing thing or whatever. And like it still sucks. And right now the way it works is you have to essentially write a program, right? That like reads the time series data and lets the AI essentially run control this program to do operations, right? The AI is still not super capable or capable enough to understand time series. Because again, like when you think about the statistical model the AIs use, right? Like it's not like what is Coinkite's sort of like sales pattern? Like it's irrelevant to me. I was not trained on that, right? It's completely random. The next thing, it just doesn't think that way. So like that'll be huge for business. Like for example, with the Nostr thing was like a huge challenge for us to integrate Nostr because we had to teach what Nostr is. We had to write programs that the AI can execute to query Nostr and try to understand that further, right? Like, and then sort of capture the parts that it does, and then it's like creates these huge databases. What else? It's like I think that if I knew the breakthroughs, we would probably already know them. There's much smarter people thinking about like what's the next thing.
So what's the difference between a large language model and AGI then? What is the difference?
AGI is just like it's like a term for the LPs. It's it's the same with AI. AI is just a term for the investors, right? Like it's like when you go like pitch your new company or AGI company, go like, yeah, and we're gonna work on general intelligence, right? Like it's like it's like going to your investors and saying, hey, like so we want to create a company that writes code. Okay, great.
So but what you're saying is it's only ever going to be large language models and pattern matching. That's all it's ever going to be.
No, somebody's going to come up with something else. Like, like it will happen. Like somebody will invent some other thing that is not large language models.
Okay.
That will happen. The same way somebody invented the image recognition or stable diffusion, right? Like it's just somebody will come up with something else.
Okay. Can we talk about the dark path?
Sure.
Okay. The amount of time you've spent on this, looking at this, obviously first risk is just giving all your data over to a third party and them owning that. And what they use on an individual level, because that's obviously a risk, but collectively how they use that data. If they're pattern matching, will we get into the Minority Report of future crime?
Yeah, it's full evil.
Yeah, full evil.
It's going to go full evil. Like, not because of the AI itself. It's like that.
What's done with it?
The AI is amoral. Like, even if you try to force prompt a morality on it, it's going to be whose morality, right? The problem is it's going to be full evil, right? Because think about it this way, okay? The tax people already do that, right? Like they go and they search for patterns on people's tax returns and they try to find some stuff, right? Pre-crime stuff. And then they go and they audit people, right? And
but hold on, that's not pre-crime. That is looking at them to see if you committed a crime.
No, but hang on. There is one kicker with tax, okay? Most OECD countries, taxes are guilty till proven wrong, okay? Tax court is an inverse burden, which is absolutely insane, and I don't understand why people don't revolt. But that was Al Capone caused this way back then. They couldn't get him for crime, so they got him for tax. So essentially, you have to prove that you're innocent with tax court, right? Which is insane. So now so they do their pattern matching, and then they're like, listen, we found this, explain this. Oh, we don't like your explanation. Boom, you own taxes or you're going to jail, right? Now imagine that extrapolates a little bit more, right? Like they go, hey, so we found that you may explode this airplane in 20 years from now because of your shit that you're saying online, right? And we have to deal with you somehow. We can't just leave you alone. Sure, you're innocent till proven guilty, but maybe you don't get to be on social media anymore. We're gonna cancel you, right? Like, and you're gonna start finding a lot of this shit. Like, we already have some of the shit in Canada, right? Like,
what have you got?
Like they just passed a bill where if you offend somebody, you could go to jail, like essentially. Right. I'm pretty sure it's going to get struck down eventually in Supreme Court, but who wants to be the first person?
Okay, so you got new hate speech laws, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Will it kill us?
I mean, like, yes, of course. Like, you already have, like, modern warfare is not like the big airplane carrier anymore, right? Like, you look at Ukraine and you look what the Chinese are doing. It's like a bunch of drones, right? They're going there. They probably use a little bit of machine learning there. Very dumb still, right? But it's like, go on that village and kill everybody, right? Like, and no, but if they look like us, whatever the us is on that thing, like if it's like a black looking state, it's going to be a black safe. If it's like a Chinese looking state, it's going to be Chinese safe. They'll find some better matching there, kill everybody else, but the people that look like us, right? And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that because the machines. Like, if you have a cheaper end nodes, right? So like drones are cheap, or walking Boston Dynamic, dogs with guns on them or whatever, and they are performing the last mile human deletion. Like, for a while, it's going to be like the Predator sort of airplane drones where you have a guy in a container in Las Vegas doing the shooting for you, right? Like, that's Obama's wonderful contribution to humanity, like remote war, shooting people, and fuck it, the guy goes back to playing video game at home at the end of the day. Now imagine if you replace that human eventually with, like, a model, right? Maybe the model is better, but the problem is, like, the human empathy that we're really being so good at removing from soldiers, right? There was still a little bit left in there. The machine won't have any, right? It really becomes the Terminator movie is a great way to look at this.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of this is starting to get interesting. Danny, have you been seeing these like AI videos of like Gareth Southgate and players?
No.
So during the Euros, we've got the Euros on at the moment. The Euro 2024. It's like the World Cup for Europe, right?
Yep.
And England have been a bit shit. Let's just be honest.
Yo, tell me about it. It's like full communism.
Yeah, but we're in the semi-finals. But we've been getting these videos coming out, like interviews with the manager and players, and they're hilarious because it's like the manager coming out and saying, "Yeah, we were fucking shit. I've got no idea what the fuck I'm doing. We just got lucky. Fuck it. Let's do it." Like, it's just ridiculous, right? But they're pretty good. They're getting the mouth movements better.
Yeah.
The voice is perfect. Mouth movements are getting better. So we get into this point now where anyone can almost create anything and fake anything.
So this is the beauty of the Bitcoin Nostr AI conversion, right? It's like between Nostr and Bitcoin there, you fix everything.
What is it? You sign with a private key whether you said something?
Yeah, I mean, but like on Nostr, every single post or note is signed, right? And the AI cannot fake that, period.
Yeah, cool. Which is fine. But what about press conference interviews?
I mean, you could totally do that. You can sign. That's what DRM is, right? Like, so for example, there is a reason why it's so hard for you to watch that movie that they want to put you in jail just because you copy from the internet. It's very hard. So like, if you have a client that's checking for digital signatures, right? Like, if you're a person that's interested in the truth, let's put it this way, right? You're going to run a little plugin called the Truther or something, right? And it's just going to check every frame for a signature or whatever, right? Or the buffer, whatever you want to, however you want to do the DRM, right? And it can just tell you, like, okay, well, this from this, like, it turns red, like it's all fake now, or signature lasts now, right? Like,
no, but say a scenario like this where the three of us are doing this, would we all have to sign in with our private key to confirm this is something we all did make?
Oh, absolutely. We're fucked. Okay. Like, anybody who has a podcast or been in public is completely fucked. because like there is enough Bitcoin.review episodes now that they can like make a absolutely perfect Brazilian dyslexic accent, talking for 3 hours. Like it really is like enough data to train these models like absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, but are we fucked, or are we the opposite? That we're not fucked in that we would be the type of people who start signing ours and we just say that's not me.
Well, see, we have plausible deniability, right? But the key really is key, right? A publicly PGP cryptography, right? Public-private cryptography. We really need to move to this, and we're moving that direction, right? I mean, like, Nostr is working, and I'm posting more there, and people are going to post more there, and there's going to be more clients. It's going to be used for other things, right? Like public calendars, whatever it is. Like, we're going to move to a world where like having private keys resolves most problems, because the only thing AI cannot fake is computational proof of work, right? That's why for Bitcoin is so important, right? Like if the AI can break the algo, right, then it can like make more Bitcoin. But if anything can break those algos, we have bigger problems. Airplanes fall off the sky, right? Because the firmware encryption on those airplanes is the same principles and similar algos too. So literally airplanes will fall off the sky if somebody breaks SHA-256.
Okay, so earlier you said the reason you were with Apple and not with Google is because of privacy.
Yeah, I mean, like,
data.
Let's put it this way, like they all own me anyway, right? Like Apple still owns me to a certain degree. At least I know that they make their money selling me hardware, right? So like their incentives are more aligned with mine, right? Like, are they doing a bunch of shit? Absolutely. Do they probably have a backdoor available to governments? Absolutely, right? Like now with Google it's a whole other ball game of worst, right? Like, I mean, they make their money reading your emails and serving you ads, right? Like, it's just, they've always, why does Apple have such a shit fucking AI on Siri, right? Why? Because they were not aggregating users' data to train their models, because they give you privacy to a certain extent, right? Why was Google so good for a long time with Alexa? It's because they were training with all your fucking data, right? So, and if Google can see the data, the government can see the data, other governments can see the data, people who shouldn't see the data can see the data, right? Apple has a lot of little things that show that they try to go in the right direction, and government sort of kicks them in the nuts, but they try to do things in a certain way. Because again, they make their money off hardware, and I prefer to support a company that does that.
So what about the integration of AI into Apple now then? Their announcements.
It's, knowing how, like, having the way I think about Apple through the years is very simple, right? They did this with Intel. They did this with everybody, right? They come in, they say like, okay, we clearly cannot do this in-house today. So they go, they hire an outsourced company. They'll probably host all that shit internally with paying them a license, and they'll give them some marketing praise publicly. They won't share a fucking thing with them. And then they'll build their own quietly. And then in a few years, they just say, fuck it. They did that with everybody.
Yeah, but do you worry about an AI being inside the phone and what it can see and do? And
oh, absolutely. I don't like that. I don't like that. But again, knowing how Apple functions, like they'll have an off button for that stuff. Right?
True. Yeah. I don't know. Part of me's like really thinking again about going back to a dumb phone.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, like, the phone is not a phone. It's your computer with all your whole life in it, right? Yeah. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? Like, if you don't want to be tracked, don't carry your phone, right? If you don't want to be heard, don't carry your phone. If you don't want to be seen, don't carry your phone. I always joke that like the reason why there's two cameras on the phone, one on the front and one on the back, is so that the NSA guy can see your penis while you see your face while you do the things. Like they're all watching, right? Like, I mean, they really are. Like, the phones have this thing called baseband, right? Like, which is the modem of the phone, and it's like oftentimes from Broadcom, and the memory is integrated between your phone and this thing, and the carriers have access to it. Like, it's all.
So they have a huge database of everyone jacking off.
Probably, yeah. I mean, like, I can't imagine a more government-like thing than that. Like, they really just want to have you buy your
the literal
pants.
You
Yes,
holding your ball
by the balls.
And
Exactly.
you're literally holding them and giving them to them.
Haven't you guys noticed like that? Up until like a few years ago, they would still try to like crack shit, like and sort of like, no, you can't have this, no, you can't have that. And then like the last few years, it sort of like stopped. It's like, yeah, sure, you can have your phone with encryption, you can have your computer with encryption. You don't really care, right? Like, we're gonna stop blocking. Why? Because they have backdoors in the fucking hardware. Like,
oh man,
They're still trying that shit in England.
no, it's see, the problem is probably because the American government has Google and Apple by the ball, so they can see it in a lower level, right? And the Americans are not going to share that shit with Europeans, right? Even though it's Five Eyes, there is only so much they're willing to share. So like the Europeans need to go on the level above that because they don't have control over those companies.
Fuck, man.
How do you think?
But we can fight back. We can fight back to a certain degree. Dude, first of all, open source, right? We're source verifiable or whatever. At least you can sort of you can see what the things are doing. That's a huge win, right? Mind you, with computers like Raspberry Pis or phones, you can't see what's doing, right? Because it's all closed. The actual hardware is closed. So but there is simpler hardware that you can see what's happening inside. Right, so your flip phones, your cold cards, your, more reduced, less complicated hardware. Right, what's going on in there. So at least you have that thing. Your private key is not being owned by some overlord. And when you use those little devices in conjunction with the own device, right, like the computer is Palm, you can sign your Nostr things, you can sign your Bitcoin things. And you can have assurance that nobody can fake you, or also nobody can see. If you're using proper encrypted comms, they're very hard for normal people. You can get there, right? And normal people, it'd be nice if they have it, but at least the journalists can do the hop above and show everything to the world, right? Without getting owned. I think I'm hopeful. I am very optimistic with this. I think, as we reduce size of government through Bitcoin and hard money, we can reduce their power and therefore their capacity of taking advantage of the tools, right?
So what's the role of Bitcoin in all of this then? What's the convergence? You've done the Nostr. What's the Bitcoin AI convergence?
Well, the main thing really is being able to anonymously sort of pay for things. Have funding for companies that are trying to do government AI things the government doesn't want without the government's permission, right? Funding in general. You look at OpenSats, or you look at the B Trust, or funds that are Bitcoin based and hold the funds in Bitcoin. It's a lot harder to be coerced that way, so they can fund open AI work. It's just having that hard money thing. Having the hard money thing solves a lot of problems, right? Me earning from Unleashed in a certain hard money way, it's huge. I don't know. I think we win in this timeline because government is not gonna die because we take its power away. It's gonna die because it's not gonna be able to fund its power.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other conversation. Danny, is there anything we've not touched on you wanted to?
The only thing that I thought was quite interesting is how chain analysis companies are going to use AI to sort of surveil Bitcoin blockchain.
So, it's very powerful for them, right? The pattern recognition stuff, and then when you add multiple layers of pattern recognition, it gets very interesting, right? And they're probably already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the cool thing, right? AI works on two ways, right? We also have, we're going to have people creating very cool anonymization tools using AI, right? And it feels like waving their hands, kind of bullshit talk, they're going to use AI.
Yeah.
As soon as somebody says use AI, it's total red flag, right? Where does the investor money goes? No, but it's totally possible. The same things that somebody can do from one side, you can do it against them, right? Like think about it that way, right? Like it's just an arms race, but because so much of this happens in open source, he equalizes very fast, so he becomes neutral very fast. That's why, like, I really want to see like people who do chain analysis have like open source models where they're trying to like, you know, attack and defend. So play red and blue team, you know, and pretty sure if they apply to OpenSats to do shit like that, they probably will get a funding, provided they have some code already. But you know, it's gonna happen, right? I think people should be a lot more mindful of their privacy than they are, and there's gonna be an ugly period probably too, right? Like where
Soon.
it's more like this thing comes and goes and depends on who you are, right? Like it's worse for some people at different times, right? If you want to be an ivermectin crazed person and not join the crowd in certain periods is worst. But it's not like apocalypse now. I don't believe in that sort of mental framework.
I'm feeling the pull away from it. Like, get away from digital stuff.
Do it, man. I am remote like a lot of times. Just do it. Like turn off the Wi-Fi, turn off everything, go to bed, sleep like a baby. You know, literally turn off the Wi-Fi. Like pull the plug for bed. You know, turn off the phone radio or turn off the phone. Well, to the extent, put in a little Faraday bag. They don't turn off. You know, your kids will thank you for that. Just fuck off from this insanity here and there, you know?
I'm feeling it, man. I'm feeling it. Cool. Anything else, Danny?
No, I think we're good.
All right, I'm going to play with Unleashed.chat a little bit more. See how I get on with it. I've only got a couple of prompts left now. It's about to make me pay.
I think you actually get more credits if you sign up.
I can give you my data. I've got one prompt remaining.
There you go. Send me your private key on the last prompt, and then you find out if we can see it or not.
That's how you sign up, Pete. You just send me private key.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm not that dumb. You've reached your free prompt limit of the day.
There you go. No email sign up. That's the nice thing there. Full and on.
Well, it's fucking grade the box out. If I just go to hold on. What if I just do this? New private window. Oh, I can back in for free.
There you go. We're not privacy first, right? So we're not doing like hard things that steal your privacy in order to protect the system prompting credits there.
So I can basically use it for free forever.
Well, it's not the same. Like you're not getting the higher end stuff and the file upload, which is really cool. Like once you vectorize your data there, you can start having a library of your stuff. It gets very interesting.
What if you're an evil spook, really?
I mean, if you're playing against state actors at that level, then what they're going to say is just run your own on your own hardware. That, you know, with me, you're just commercially safe.
No, I'm going to use yours. I'm going to play with yours. I like it. Unleashed.chat listeners, people, NVK, any closing words?
No, man, just, you know, get out there, buy Bitcoin, use freedom tools, and you know, get out into nature.
Danny, what time is it there?
It's only like midnight. It's not too bad.
Right, we'll let Danny get some sleep. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you all soon.